morning, everyone, and welcome to Get It Growing, the gardening program of the Lafayette Parish Master Gardeners. Today, we're delighted to have with us Don Farron, who is a plant pathologist from the LSU Ag Center. Today, Don's going to be talking about fall lawn problems and fall citrus problems. Welcome, Don.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it's fall. There's cool weather in the air. Everybody wants to be outside, and it's ideal weather for brown patch. For most of you that have lawns, you remember from last year, we had a banner year for brown patch last year. This year, we have ideal conditions right now, but so far we haven't seen the emergence of the disease. So if you haven't treated for brown patch yet, you still have time. Brown patch is a fungal disease caused by a fungus called Rhizoctonia solani, which survives in the soil from year to year. And when it becomes active, it attacks the grass above the soil line and rots the leaf sheaths right at the base. It doesn't kill the turf, but basically it causes the area to be thinned out and then weeds come in, and that's why it's such a major problem.
And it just absolutely looks awful.
Yes.
Many people pride themselves on that expanse of green lawn, and it just drives those people crazy.
Yes, particularly those people with St. Augustine lawns, because St. Augustine is particularly sensitive. And the spots may start out only maybe a foot or 2 feet in diameter, but if you get the right weather conditions, they will expand rapidly, and you can have spots that are 10 to 15 feet across or more scattered throughout the lawn.
And what color are they usually? Aren't they colored usually on the edge?
Yeah, usually the edge of a St. Augustine lawn where the fungus is actually attacking the grass will take on kind of a yellowish cast. And when you go out and you grab some of that yellow grass and you pull it up, it'll come right off of the stolons because it's rotted right there at the base of the leaf sheath.
And the center stays a little bit greener.
The center can stay a little bit greener. Generally what it is you get a thinned area of turf and there will be some brown intermixed with it.
And we're waiting on the rains.
Yes.
When the rains come, and they will come eventually,
yes,
this problem is just going to leap
it
to
will
the fore.
explode. And I know right now we've got ideal weather conditions. We've got the daytime temperatures in the mid 80s, the nighttime temperatures around 50. That's ideal for this disease. Just because we haven't had the rain doesn't mean the disease won't start slowly. I was out this morning walking the dog, and there is enough dew on the grass to get this started, but if we do get into a period where we get several days of rain, this disease could really explode.
And as I understood, you were saying because we had the disease last year, the likelihoods of having another problem this year, unless you've treated, are really high.
Yes, because the fungus survives very well from year to year in the soil and in the thatch layer of the grass. But,
so our local garden center should be stocking up then.
Yes, most of the garden centers have their displays of fungicides for controlling brown patch out. On the way to work this morning, I stopped at one of the big box stores, and a prominent display featuring Scott's lawn fungus control, which contains the active ingredient thiophanate methyl. This is an old standard that's been around for quite a while. It's a very effective material to use for control or for prevention. Actually, we don't try and control this disease as much as we try and prevent it. There's a number of other fungicides that are available depending upon where you shop. You may find formulations of microbutanil or propiconazole or tridimifan, which are all very good materials. We also have a new fungicide this year, which has got a lot of people excited. It's Maxide Disease Killer for Lawns. And basically, this is the first commercially available formulation of azoxystrobin for homeowner use for controlling brown patch in lawns. It's a very effective material. I saw it this morning in Lowe's, and I also stopped at a Walmart, and it was being sold in Walmart, so it is available right now, and
locally.
It is something, yes.
And if you're hesitant, if you're not sure that you've actually got brown patch, let's talk about a little bit about the help available from the LSU Ag Center.
Sure. On campus, we have a disease diagnostic clinic where if you want to send samples in, it is a for-fee service. Currently, we're charging $20 a sample, but with brown patch, the turnover should be fairly rapid. You should get a response within a day or two if that's the problem or not. Other sources of information are publications that are put out by the Ag Center. This is a very good publication on Louisiana lawns, best management practices. I would highly recommend that if you're serious about a lawn, you get this publication. It is a for sale publication. I believe this goes for $10, but it covers fertilization, it covers weed control, insect control, disease control, and everything you need to know about growing a healthy lawn is in this publication.
And we also, as you know, have a new horticulture agent in Lafayette Parish who is available by telephone. Gerald Roberts has been fielding multiple calls on lawn problems, and he will be glad to help you. Don has also authored an excellent article on brown patch that's available on the LSU Ag Center website, and you can download that for help. If you're coming to one of our garden talks, the next coming garden talk will be October the 16th at 10 o'clock at the R. Nelson Horticulture Center. Karen Willingham will be speaking on gourds. She's going to discuss growing and curing the birdhouse gourds. And if you have a question, if you have any type of plant question, bring that, and there will be master gardeners available. You can make use of the Ask a Master to Gardener program. If the master gardeners do not have the answers, they will get it to the appropriate personnel at the extension service, and you will get an answer. There may be a slight delay if we don't know it off of the top of our heads, but you will get an answer. And Dawn brought a sample of a bag. I brought a sample of a bag, especially if you're getting into, large, or if you have tree samples or shrub samples, or you want to get some roots. Don said he even uses garbage bags. But just bring, a sample of your problem encased in plastic, because, it just controls all the little icky stuff and the flies and the bugs crawling. So it makes a little bit fun experience for everybody. You don't want those things crawling all over your car anyway.
Right. And there is one additional source of information that we've put out this year. We've been trying to get involved using social media to get the word out to people about problems that are currently we're seeing across the state. And we started a blog called the Louisiana Plant Pathology blog. And this is the web address for this is www.laplantpath.wordpress.com. I started this as in place of starting a quarterly newsletter type educational material so that I could put out information as it was happening. And this is information that it's available to anybody. I started this to get information out to county agents, but they have I've been talking about this to master gardener groups, and so more and more people are looking at this, and we try and put things on there as diseases are showing up, as new products are coming out. As an example, I put out a news alert a month and a half ago when we first heard that this product was coming out, just to let the county agents know that it was out there. We also put out information on what diseases we might be seeing. If county agents send in a photograph, I'll put that on the blog, and I've started this little series we call Disease du Jour, and it's basically you get a one-paragraph description of the disease and a little bit about it, just so that you're aware of it. And if you need more information, you can go to the Ag Center website and find that.
And diseases do tend to occur in multiple places. It's amazing. If you go into the office to do phone hours, you will get one phone call. We keep a log, and then all of a sudden there's 6, 7, 8 people calling about within a span of 2 or 3 days. Yes. Army worms have been a big hot topic all over Lafayette and Baton Rouge. Repeat the web address of your blog again.
It's www.laplantpath.wordpress.com. And you can sign up. There's a subscription service so that when I post something new, you can get an email sent to you that lets you know that there's something new posted.
Yeah, and to finish, we didn't talk about cultural practices that will not alleviate brown patch, but help have a good, healthy lawn.
Right.
Which is important. It's reducing the possibilities.
Because brown patch is a disease that we typically see in the fall and then again in the spring sometimes. It likes that cool weather, and this is the time when the grass is either transitioning from active growth to going dormant, or from being dormant to coming out into active growth. And culturally, the things that we really stress are, if you're irrigate in the morning when the grass is already wet. You don't want to irrigate in the evening so that the grass is wet all night, because the fungus needs water on the leaves in order to grow. The other thing is fertilization. If you get the Louisiana Lawns publication, it tells you in there when the best time to fertilize is. This fungus likes that lush, succulent growth when the grass is actively growing. And the mistake that some people make is they will fertilize too late in the summer. We don't recommend fertilizing after the middle of August. You want that grass to kind of run out of nitrogen and start to go dormant. And then again in the spring, the biggest mistake that people make is when they first start to see the grass start to green up, they get out with the weed and feed. And we really stress that we try and get people to hold off on fertilization until about the middle of April. If you feel that you must do something when you first start to see that green grass come out, put down a fungicide for brown patch.
And it is, we all get spring fever.
Yes.
And many times the appropriate products are not out, and people mistakenly grab the wrong product and do the exact opposite. You really need to educate, which is a prime reason for getting a pamphlet like this, is you can refer at the appropriate time and refresh your memory as to what you could be doing, because somebody like Don remembers all the chemical names, the rest of us don't.
Because one of the features of this publication is it has a calendar that tells you when you should be treating for certain diseases, when you should be applying fertilizers and things like that. So this is something, one of the benefits of having this, you have a ready-made calendar.
And this and the vegetable guide too are excellent guides. We are using, the vegetable guide too just as much as this one. Now, in addition, have we covered the lawn problems?
I think we've covered the lawn problem pretty well.
Okay, and, let's move on to fall citrus problems.
Right now, fall citrus is starting to be harvested, and over the next month or so, we're going to get a lot of fruit being harvested. And we are starting to see some disease problems that people are starting to notice. They may not have been out looking at their fruit during the summer, but now that they're starting to harvest, they're seeing things. And we do have a disease that we consider fairly new. It's newly recognized, although it's been in the state for quite a while, we think. It's called sweet orange scab. In Louisiana, we have what we call common scab, but it primarily affects the satsumas, the tangerines, and it doesn't really affect the sweet oranges. This new scab has a much wider host range. It will attack sweet oranges as well. Previously, it had only been reported from South America, but recently they found it in Texas, just across the Louisiana border. When they started looking, it's been found everywhere in Louisiana that they've looked for it. They found it recently in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. So we know that it's probably been around for longer than we thought. The symptoms are you get this scabby looking growth on the surface of the fruit. Actually, with our common scab that we see, you'll get warty like projections on the fruit. The sweet orange scab, the scabby lesions tend to be flatter on the surface, and it's very cosmetic. It doesn't really do any damage unless the fruit are heavily infected when they're young. Then they won't be able to size up and mature. But at this stage, if that fruit ripens up, you peel that off and you'd never know that it was there.
So this is an optional treatment.
Right. Basically, the fruit are susceptible from when they're very first formed until about 6 to 8 weeks later. So the optimum time to control this disease is in the spring when the fruit are just forming. For homeowners, the only fungicide that we have that's really recommended are the copper-based fungicides. But once the trees have quit flowering, you don't want to spray copper during flowering. But as soon as flowering is over, you can go out and start spraying with a copper spray and protect your fruit. And you only have to do that for maybe 2 or 3 sprays, and that would be sufficient to control this disease.
And really, that's an important point to make. There are many diseases that actually, by the time you see them, it's too late to do anything about them.
Yes.
And even if it's not, it's an important decision as to whether you're going to try and control the disease, whether it's economically worth it.
Right.
As a homeowner, we're not commercial, most of us are not commercial citrus growers. So even if it's something you can treat, in some instances, you just say,
right.
May not
And
be worth
particularly
it.
with this one, this is so cosmetic. And I think we're seeing so much of it this year because we had that cool, wet spring up until about the 1st of May. Ideal conditions for the development of this disease, and that was when the fruit were susceptible. And so we do see a lot of it. In a normal year, we'll get samples like this in occasionally, but it's not really a major problem.
Now, what might be, and this is totally out of the realm of what we're speaking about today, but we're talking about the fact that the rains are going to be coming.
Yes.
And if you're not getting water on your citrus now, that inch of water a week, and that's a lot of water to get on plants. When the rains do start, a lot of the citrus, you're going to see some damage. So take the time, probably look at all of your yard because it is dry, and evaluate, your irrigation methods and your application to get an inch of water a week, whether it's on your lawn or your perennials or your citrus.
Yes, definitely. The other problem that people are seeing a lot of right now is, use the other one, is on citrus in particular, is leaf miner damage. It's very noticeable. You'll get, the leaves will be distorted, sometimes they'll be curled, and you do see these little mines going through the leaves. This is damage caused by a little fly that lays its egg inside the leaf, and it does this back in August. So the time to have tried to control this would have been back in August. It doesn't really affect production. It doesn't really affect the fruit. So a lot of times we just don't recommend spraying. But if you feel that you don't like to see foliage like this, the time to treat for this would be back in August.
And there's also an excellent publication.
Yes. The Louisiana Home Citrus Production Guide. This was just redone 2 years ago. It's now in a nice color format with all updated information. The only information that's not in here is the new information on sweet orange scab. But we do have spray schedules in here and descriptions of managing these problems.
Is there a fee for this one, John?
Yeah, I believe this is also a for-fee publication, but I couldn't tell you exactly right now what it's costing.
And many of, as you know, the LSU, many of the publications used to be free. Of course, the LSU Ag Center is in tremendous budget constraints now, and these are well worth the money. They are minimal fees, to help cover the cost of printing, and they're guides that we personally as master gardeners are using every day.
Yes, because a publication like this in the past would have been a black and white publication. The photos would have been black and white, and the paper would have been just a little bit heavier than standard paper. But now we've got this nice glossy paper with all these wonderful pictures in here that really make a difference. So
and the photographs are wonderful when you're identifying problems, and they get good shots. They'll show the little brown squiggly line of the leaf miner so you can positively identify what you have. Another problem that we're seeing this time of year,
Cercospora leaf spots. Cercospora is a fungus that typically we think of as being very host specific, so that the Cercospora that attacks one species of plant or one genus of plants doesn't attack another. But we see Cercospora leaf spots on almost everything. If you've got a persimmon tree, you probably see Cercospora leaf spot on the older leaves. On figs, you'll see Cercospora leaf spot. And a lot of time the leaf spot will maybe have a little white center, and then it'll have a purple border around the edge of that. And that's very characteristic. But crepe myrtles are notorious for Cercospora leaf spot. It was a banner year for Cercospora leaf spot this year on the crepe myrtles.
And hydrangeas.
Hydrangeas, and we'll see it on laurel petalum and a lot of other crops or plants that we grow in the landscape. It's just one of those things. We don't really have a lot of recommendations for it, because if you want to spray for this, You have to spray for such an extended period of time that we don't really recommend it. And again, this was an ideal year for it. Normally we would not see this much or this heavy of disease with this particular pathogen.
Now, and another problem we ought to talk about, because this is a non-issue too, but it's something that you need to be aware of, is deciduous plants preparing for the fall.
Yes. Right now you're seeing a lot of plants with the older foliage is starting to turn yellow. It'll be spotted with black and brown spots. These may be opportunistic fungi that are coming in on the tissue as it's senescing, but it's nothing to be concerned about. It's typical for this time of year. The cool weather has triggered this, and the drought has helped too, but it's just that time of year.
I've noticed it on abutilons, if anyone is growing abutilons and have noticed, the yellowing from the bottom, as opposed to if you've got yellowing all over your plant.
Right, or if it's the new growth that's turning yellow, which would be more indicative of an insect or a disease problem.
Now, if we've got a little time, as a plant pathologist, you're not only concerned with diseases, but the environmental factors that contribute to those
Sure.
diseases.
Sure.
What are you seeing? We have had a freeze, a terrible
Yes.
freeze, a
Oh,
not really great summer.
No. We're seeing a lot of stress on plants, and whether it's cold damage or heat damage or drought, anytime you stress a plant like that, you make it more susceptible to attack by pathogens. They're just not growing as vigorously as they need to be able to defend themselves, and it's
a bad year.
It's a bad year.
It's a bad, to sum it up, this was just not a great gardening year. It really,
But we survived, and next year will be another year, and hopefully it will be better.
And there's a lot to be said for looking at a plant like that and saying, it just wasn't a good year for that plant.
Right.
It used to be that people would rush in, and 10 years ago, you would rush in to control a disease. You would get chemicals, whether or not you knew what you were doing with those
Right.
chemicals, and spray. Now we have a little bit more relaxed attitude, attempt to manage the disease when
Right.
you choose to do that,
Yes.
and sometimes just accept.
Yeah, we either live with the disease or we say that's not the plant that we want to grow.
Right. And we also, there are plant breeders are continually coming up with new. Are there any new varieties of St. Augustine?
Not that I know of, but I haven't really kept up with what's going on with the breeding program. It would be slow,
But plant breeders are continually trying to improve, products.
Definitely.
And that's something you need to look at when you select plants.
Yes.
Is select, especially in the crepe myrtles, so much has been done. There are newer crepe myrtles now that are resistant to a
Yes.
lot of diseases.
But again, one thing you got to remember when we talk about resistant plants is they will still get the disease, just not as severely as on a susceptible plant.
Right.
I mean, the classic example would be daylilies.
Right.
When rust first came out, the daylilies were just decimated. But now the breeders have come out with all these new varieties that tend to be resistant. And the rust is there, but it's not the big problem that it was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Right, and you still go select, I do anyway, for the disease-resistant plants. Just assuming that, we cannot control
You
a
can't-
lot of the environmental factors.
Yes.
They are, we cannot control whether we're going to have a hot summer,
No.
whether we're going to have a freeze,
No.
which is part of your
Disease triangle.
your
Yes.
disease triangle, which is what we're going to talk about right now. That you have to have a perfect merger of conditions and problems for disease to occur.
Yes. And weather is just one component of the environment. There's a lot of things in the environment, soil conditions, soil fertility, soil compaction, things like that we can manipulate. So when we talk about modifying the environment, we're not talking about trying to modify weather, but there is a lot that we can do modifying the environment in the landscape to reduce the effects of diseases.
And big cultural practices too. And all of the articles, whether it be on the webworms or we haven't even talked about the kill-all,
Take all
the
root rot.
take-all root rot
Yes.
that's occurring too. But stress good cultural practices for your lawns.
Yes.
You know, mowing high. We all tend to mow too low. St. Augustine, you know, you need that 3 inches for, you know, to keep your St. Augustine. It's a plant. A lawn is thousands of tiny plants to keep
Yes.
that lawn healthy. Well, we have enjoyed having you here
Thank
today,
you very
Don.
much.
We have all learned a lot. We want to briefly promo the Master Gardeners are going to sponsor a gardening talk November the 11th at 6 o'clock at the Southside Library. Dan Gill and a horticulturist from New Orleans will be speakers there. You know that Dan is always an informative and an amusing speaker, so put that date on your calendar.
It's a wrap. That's it. That's it.
Okay, I don't think we've forgotten much.
No, I think we covered everything, and
That's always your big problem is, okay. Okay, voices, things.
so I don't think